Hello everyone and welcome to The Melting Scot. My name is Junaid Ashraf. I'm the founder, and today I'm happy to say we have with us Zahra Hedges, the new Chief Executive of Winning Scotland, who has also had a very varied career across the third sector within Scotland. And I'm excited to hear about her journey today. So thank you so much for being with us here, Zahra.
I'm really excited. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, so I mean, I know about some of the previous work you've done with the Scottish Government, and I know you're on some new trustee boards and things like that. Would you like to just take us through your journey into where you are today and how you've ended up as the Chief Executive of Winning Scotland, and speak through some of the aspirations of what the organisation's trying to do?
So Winning Scotland is a charity that works to build confidence and resilience in children and young people, but we don't actually work with children and young people. We work with the adults around them, recognising the importance of those people. So for example, we have an accredited programme for teachers. So teachers will learn about growth mindset, they'll learn about resilience, they'll learn that it's a skill that you can learn, and it's not just that you're either a strong person or a weak person. We do similar in sports coaching. We also do some work with communities, with parents, and it's really what we're known for and what we're good at, and I'm really excited to be in that job now. It's my first chief exec position, and I was really nervous about it, but actually going in, the team that I'm in is just brilliant. They know their stuff inside and out, and they live growth mindset. So in terms of how they view their own progress and their own development, it's just a wonderful place to be. And I feel now that given the pandemic, this is a really good time to be thinking about our mindset and the mindset that we're teaching our children, because we know that particularly young workers, they're the ones that are most affected by furlough, for example. They're the ones that are being made redundant. So if we can help people see that maybe their past experience isn't necessarily going to dictate what their future will be, then that could be a real value that Winning Scotland can add. But I have to say, it wasn't necessarily that I was looking for a chief exec role at this point in my career. It was this organisation, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'd love to join that and I'd love to lead it. And I actually just applied for the job thinking, well, I'll see how I go, and then maybe I'll get some feedback, and in a few years' time, I might be able to apply for something like this again. And to my surprise, I got the job. But I have to say, it feels like a really good fit.
Well, congratulations on your first Chief Executive Officer role. I mean, here's to many more in the future, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been seeing.
Well, I'll be here for a while.
Yeah. No, I mean, I personally hadn't heard of Winning Scotland, so when I read of obviously the outline of what you guys do, I mean, I was really excited to hear about the fact that there are organizations like this that work with not only directly with the young people, because I've been a part of organizations that work directly with young people, you know, the Scottish Youth Farm, you know, Youth Link Scotland, organizations that are supported by Young Scot. And I think that part of that sort of conversation that's required is the adults also need to understand how to inculcate this sort of behavior and mindset for the future for young people, and the fact that there's a whole organization dedicated to it and working on it, I think is fantastic. But how does one end up on their journey towards being the chief executive officer of an organization like this? I mean, you said that you were applying for the role and you were a bit apprehensive about getting it, perhaps, or just thinking about it. I mean, quite clearly, if you've been hired for the role, you're 100% competent and you're definitely, you know, suited for the role. But I mean, where did these sort of apprehensions come from? Why did you not think that you might be not suitable for the role, or is there anything that's...
I just didn't think I was necessarily ready. I think that people often tend to, well, women especially, actually, research shows that women wait to be asked, or someone needs to say to a woman, well, you know, you should put yourself forward for that, because we'll look at a list of job requirements and a job description, and if we don't hit 10 of them, 10 of the 10, then we won't apply. Whereas typically research shows that a man will hit 7 and think, oh, well, I'm going to go for that. So we can't necessarily say that the recruitment process is biased, because women aren't necessarily putting themselves forward. So there was a little bit of that for me. And I've worked in organisations with brilliant CEOs. So I kind of thought, and because this organisation I thought does such a good job, I thought they deserved someone brilliant. And actually it's great to hear from my board that they do think I'm that brilliant person, and it feels like a good fit. I would say as soon as I got the job, and I had a really good pre-induction period, and I had a really good handover from the person who was stepping down from the role. And all of that meant that actually by the time I started the job on day one, 3 weeks ago, I already felt like it was my place to be there, and that I had earned my seat at the table, and I did have some value to add. So as I didn't set out to be a CEO, but for me, the thing over the last 10 years has been about purpose. And that's what I followed. I mentor a young person, and she's in S4. And she's obviously thinking a lot about her career, and particularly careers teachers are saying, oh, what do you want to do at university? What do you want to be? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't know either what I want to be, but actually what I know is that I want all of my working time to be doing something purposeful. And it's up to each of us to decide what that purpose is. But I started off wanting to be a journalist. And when I was about 11, I wanted to be a journalist, and I turned 16, went into hospital radio, part-time job when I was at uni, was working at the Evening Times and New Radio and getting work experience in all these different places. And then I graduated, and actually it's not very growth mindset, but I had applied for a BBC scheme, and it's called the News Sponsorship Scheme, and they paid you to do a postgrad in broadcast journalism. But the thing for me was that during your holidays, the BBC would take you in and you would go on placements in their newsrooms. And I got down to the final 20, I believe, out of several thousand applicants, but I didn't get the final 12. And I just kind of decided that if I wasn't good enough for the BBC, then I didn't want to be a journalist anymore. And I think I had these visions of being Kate Adie and changing the world. And so at the age of 21, having spent 10 years searching about what I wanted to do, I was all of a sudden like, oh, I have no idea what I want to do. And I had gone to university, so I had a degree, and I just happened to be offered a summer job with my boyfriend at the time. His mum worked at a college. And again, that's privilege, because that's a network that I had, and I was offered this temporary summer job, and I proved myself, and I got offered a permanent job. But there are lots of people who don't have connections in those worlds. And I think that's what I felt about journalism. I remember there was a girl at my school who, someone in her network was in broadcast already. And whereas they just had always wanted to journalism and was doing work experience and everything, all she did was phone this friend and say, can I get some work experience at the local radio station? And she got it, and it ended up turning into a job for her. And I was a bit like, well, my parents are shopkeepers. I don't know anybody who works in journalism. I don't have anybody to phone. And so much about the media then, and I believe now, is about contacts and about, can you afford to go to London and do work experience for free, so yeah, at that point, I didn't really know what to do, but I fell into essentially project management and administration, and I really liked it. I really liked lots of things about that job, and I felt valued in a way that I hadn't in journalism. And so for the next 10 years, I worked in education, at the college and in children's education, and I worked at a university, which wasn't a particularly happy experience. But again, for me, it's about figuring out what you don't want to do as much as what you do want to do. And then I took a bit of a left turn and went to China for a year. I was about 28 or 29, and again got to this point where I was like, well, I know I don't want to do that anymore. Don't know what I want to do. My brother was in China, and he put me in touch with a school that was looking to franchise their model. So I had been doing some consultancy work from the UK, helping them put their systems in place. So when they said, do you want to come over? I was like, yeah. So I went there for a year, and it was a really good experience. Again, I didn't go out with a set, this is going to take me to here. I've always been of the opinion that if you work really hard in the job that you've got, it will lead to the next opportunity for you. When I came back from China, I had my own business for a few years. Again, that wasn't something I particularly planned. Lots of things I didn't enjoy about it. I enjoyed the customer interaction. I loved the product innovation. I did not particularly, I I was in retail and I was selling hair extensions and jewelry and things like that. What I found hard was when people would come to me and say, oh, I shouldn't be buying this because I've got my lecky bill to pay. And I'd be like, go and pay your lecky bill. Please don't come and buy this wig because you've got other needs that you have. So there was something about that consumerism that I just thought, I don't know if this sits that comfortably with me. So then when an opportunity came up in social enterprise 6-7 years ago now, I never really looked back, because for me, that's the best of both worlds. You've got business, you've got the power of business, but most of your profits are getting reinvested into a purpose. And I managed a social enterprise that was an interpreting agency, and it was attached to a charity that supported refugees and asylum seekers in Glasgow. That was just amazing, because I was doing what I knew how to do, which was business, in an environment where I knew it was there was a benefit. So it was very easy to sell them, because I'm not a salesperson, but it's very easy to sell a service when you know you've got a good service and you know the benefit. And my desk was in the office of the charity, so I would see on a daily basis refugees and asylum seekers coming in for food parcels, for support with their applications. So that was a real motivating factor for me. And then that, again, working hard there, making connections there, led directly to my next role, where they were looking for someone to do some consultancy around social enterprise. And I was there very happily for 3 years, got to do lots of different things in social enterprise, went to Ethiopia to the Social Enterprise World Forum, got to go to Canada to be a judge on a youth panel, and on a daily basis was meeting social entrepreneurs across Scotland. And every day I was like, I am the luckiest person in the world. During the pandemic, I didn't get to go out as much, obviously, didn't quite get to go out at all. So the bit that I enjoyed about my job, which was the meeting people, basically shrunk down to just video calls. So I started looking for the next thing. And again, my work ethic paid me in good stead, because I said to a few people, well, I think I might be looking for something different now. And I had 2 or 3 people say, oh, why don't you apply for this? Why don't you come up for that? And that resulted in me working at the Scottish Government for a year, which I never thought I would do. I always said after I left the university that I wouldn't work anywhere with more than 50 staff. And then I ended up in the civil service. But that was, again, it was a wonderful experience, because I was working with a really good manager who protected me, I think, from a lot of the bureaucracy. And I had a specific challenge, which was to help local authorities to develop community-based mental health and wellbeing support. And I didn't know anything about mental health and wellbeing, but they did. So what I could do was bring my strength in project management, and they could bring their understanding of what young people needed. And together we did manage to roll out over 200 services in just a few months. So that was, I mean, I feel like I'm saying brilliant all the time, but I just feel that I've been lucky in the way that it's happened. But there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of conscious choices of, if I take that opportunity, is it allowing me to be of service? Is it allowing me to add value? And only pursuing those things. And then again, that's led directly to the job at Winning Scotland, because in my interview, I was able to talk about lots of different examples of working with communities, working with local authorities, working in wellbeing, sales, marketing, communication, stakeholder relationships, all the things that I've learned over the past 10 years or so. So it feels like I've got the right tools to do this job. I just need to be a bit patient with myself, and we'll see where we are in a year's time, but I feel very excited.
That was mesmerizing, Zahra. But, I mean, there was so much within that I just want to go through it in like a lot more detail. I mean, like from my personal background, I mean, like I said, my dad's he owns a petrol station, so like yourself, like shopkeeper. But I mean, there was a lot my dad wanted me to get involved with as somebody who was very keen about politics. So I mean, Dad spoke to me about the opportunity that he was aware of, that there was the youth parliament, and through there, it's kind of snowballed into obviously the career I have now, and the work that I do with the Melting Scot by following my passion, and something that you said there, which was about being purpose-driven. And I think there's quite a lot around that about the aspirations of us making it in life. And when I say us, I mean people who come from like working class communities and people who don't really know what they want to do. I mean, I started off by studying mechanical engineering, and then I worked at a financial services company whilst at university, then ended up in politics. So, I mean, you got just there engineering, finance, politics, and then it was just confusion when I finished university. I mean, where am I going? What am I doing? And somewhere along the line, I mean, I'd always been of a big sort of, not an ego, right? But I thought to myself, I'm going to leave university. I've got quite a good sort of personality because of the engineering. I got a good financial mindset. I'm just going to leave and make a lot of money, right? And somewhere along the line, somebody decided to give me a conscience and basically be like, you know what? No, if your work is not meaningful, you're just not going to be happy. And that's what I found leaving university. And what I'd say though is that the purpose-driven aspect. How do you think that people should perceive or reflect on that point if they're not sure by what you mean by that, or if they don't feel as if they have their own purpose? I mean, I'm aware of some friends who don't really have a specific purpose. They don't know what they're passionate about. What would you say to those people?
I would say, what are the things that you don't look at your watch when you're doing something? What is the thing that you don't notice the time? And it might be that you can incorporate your purpose into your career, which I've been really lucky to do, or it might be that it's something you do on a voluntary basis. It might be something that's a hobby, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, that's how I know. Well, to be honest, that's how I knew I wasn't happy. There's only one period of my career where I've been really unhappy. And the reason I knew is that I was literally looking at my watch every 5 minutes thinking, is it time to go home yet? Whereas every other job I've had, and I think the challenge for me is my first job and my second job I enjoyed very much, and they were purposeful in a way, and I kind of took it for granted that, and I'm of the generation where we were told you can be anything, you can have it all. So I just kind of thought that's what work was like. So when I went into a job that wasn't like that, and it was very much paint by numbers and you have to fit into this box and it's not about improving things, it's about fitting into systems, I just was like, oh, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know I had to avoid it because I didn't know it existed. And whereas now I am very conscious about I think my time is really valuable. You mentioned ego. I have an ego because I think my time is really precious. So I don't want to spend a minute doing something that is not to benefit me, benefit other people. And I know that I benefit from helping other people. And it makes me sound really altruistic. I have a good job. I have a good wage. I'm a single parent. I've got responsibilities. But because of the experiences I've had and the work that I've put in, I am able to have the best of both worlds, I suppose. The other thing that I want to make clear is I don't think you have to work in the third sector or the public sector to have a purposeful career. I do some consultancy for a small company called Santaller, and Santaller is a social value agency, and basically they help companies to make money, to be profitable businesses, but in a really ethical way that adds social value. And one of the things that we say is that you can work for, God forbid, you can work for Amazon and you can actually have purpose within that. Now, actually, I do have lots of ethical problems with Amazon, but I'm not saying that if you happen to work at Amazon, you're just like, oh, well, I work for a company that doesn't pay taxes and doesn't pay its employees properly, so I have to give up. Actually, within your sphere of influence, you can make a difference. And hopefully the company that you're working for will see that making a difference makes good business sense. And then you encourage the people in your circle to start thinking differently about business decisions. And then eventually you've got this ripple effect. Sorry, I went off task there, but.
Yeah, no, I think this all kind of feeds into a narrative that's above and beyond simply just going to work for the sake of making money, which I think is something that was started off by, I'm sorry to say, obviously your generation above me, obviously, right? And it's something that's been continued by my generation and also the generation younger than us, that beforehand, I mean, looking at our parents, it was looked at essentially like going to work to make some money and then coming home. And that's where the value within life was, you know, that whole holistic
looking after your family, that was the value, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like looking after the families where the value lied. And now we're just like, well, this makes no sense. Why is the majority of my day, the majority of my time, the majority of my life, when you put it into like the actual context of how much time work takes in a week, why is that being given to something that isn't benefiting people around me, my neighbors, society? And I really appreciate the perspective you're putting across of you don't necessarily need to work for a third sector organization, and the belief that all positive work happens through the third sector organisation or working for a charity is, in my opinion, misguided.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in the third sector that's not. I mean, actually, what I used to say, that if you could get a big organisation to be 1% better, 1% more social value creation focused, that would have a much bigger impact than the entire third sector put together. And it's not an either or. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you look at the impact some of these big organisations have, maybe that's where we need to focus a bit of our efforts. The other thing I just wanted to jump in with was, when you look at our parents, it was all about security. So some of my family were refugees from Uganda. My dad came over when he was 16 to do a qualification he learned to be a baker. And actually, when my dad, and this was in the 70s, he worked at this bakery, worked very hard, and there was a supervisor's job came up, and he was told to his face, "You will not get it because the white men will not take orders from you." And that is something that I can't fathom, but I think it happens now, but it's not said. So for my parents, it was very much about security, and my parents didn't have any money. They had businesses that became successful, and as soon as they got their first bit of money, they sent us to private school. My dad used to have a Jaguar, and he sold the Jaguar so we three could go to private school. That was, looking back on it, that was a phenomenal investment in our future. And it's because being a lawyer, being a doctor, being an engineer, and actually I've got 3 cousins in Canada. One's a doctor, one's a lawyer, but 2 are lawyers. That was security. So it's not that our parents wanted us to be unhappy. It's not that they wanted us to be unfulfilled. They know that money can buy you a roof over your head and it can buy food for your kids. So why would they not want that for us? Our understanding is a bit different in that I want my daughter to be happy and resilient. But I am also a realist, and I know that if she can't afford to put a roof over her head, those other things are a bit harder. So I think there is a generational, not gap, but a different generational understanding about money and value.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard it being said with that much level of clarity, and I'm definitely going to use that in terms of, like, safety and security first and foremost, and happy and resilient is the product of that. And that is just fantastic, and I really truly appreciate the perspective you've also given in terms of the growth mindset of, and a true example of it, as you're said about your whole career, from not getting your first step into journalism all the way to becoming chief executive of an organization you adore that works to support that ethical and growth mindset across the spectrum within Scotland. I don't know if you'd like to speak a little bit about your new trustee position at SACRO, which is a Scottish community justice organisation. I, for one, am really interested in terms of what you're hoping to get out of the board position and bring to, obviously, because they're very large for those that don't know SACRO.
Yeah, I again, being on a board was not something that I'd ever thought, oh, that would be me. But several years ago, Social Enterprise Scotland were looking for board members, and I had just got into social enterprise. So I was thinking, oh, from a marketing point of view, that might be quite good because I can be on the board and I can network. But I wouldn't have applied, except that they specifically said they were looking for more diversity. So I was like, okay, so even if they think I'm not experienced enough to be on the board, I'm a brown woman, so maybe they'll take me. I like to think I got in on other merits, but actually there was the same number of candidates as there were spaces. That was really good because it gave me an experience of being on a board, and I joined an organisation called Changing the Chemistry, which is a charity that works to increase diversity on boards, and they do that in a number of ways, but one of them is to support people from diverse backgrounds, not just ethnically diverse backgrounds, but any kind of diversity, including socio-economic diversity, which is important. Gives you training and support so that you can apply for your first board position, and so that when you're on the board, you can continue to be an advocate for greater diversity. So again, my board journey was not like a specific thing. I knew in the back of my mind that it would be good for my career, but it's good for your career because it builds up your skill set. So my day job for 3 years around social enterprise was marketing, communication, stakeholder stuff. When I was on the board, I was doing HR, I was doing finance, I was looking at some audit stuff, we were looking at a merger, all stuff that I wouldn't get to do in my day job. So when I've been in interviews, I've been able to say, oh, I can do that, even though it's not direct. But I made a decision last year that the next board position that I took on had to be something that I absolutely 100% cared about. So it took me a few months to figure out, well, what does that look like, because there's a lot of things I care about, and I narrowed it down to an organisation that supported care experienced young people, or an organisation that would support people involved in the justice system. And that is because I have learned the value of my privilege. And sometimes as an ethnic minority, as a woman, now as a single parent, it's easy to think that life is a bit difficult sometimes, but actually the privilege I have in coming from a loving home, I have always known at any point in my life, if I had to, I could phone my dad and he would pick me up from wherever I was. My mum would say, come and stay with us. You know, you don't have to, I've got that security and that safety net. So I realised my passion was in supporting people who don't have that. So I looked for board positions for a good few months, and then this one came up at SACRO, and I'd heard of SACRO, but I didn't know much about what they do. So I went through the application process, was lucky enough to be picked. They gave us a wonderful induction. That was just on Monday there, and we had our first board meeting today. And I think the thing about SACRO that appeals to me is it's about helping individuals in a life-changing way. And SACRO is most associated with the work it does in the criminal justice system, and that's to do with communities affected by crime as well, but they also work in care and housing. So I'm absolutely not a spokesman for them, but I am excited to be involved and really looking forward to understanding more what value I can add. But I would say to anyone to join a board, find a wee small charity that does something you care about. You know, maybe you're mad about animals, find a charity that's I don't know, rescues animals, or find a charity that supports the education of women or sports or whatever it is. And if you can donate your time to them, that is absolutely the most valuable thing. I also advise a board out in a place, I don't want to say deprived area of Glasgow, but essentially an area of Glasgow that has challenges, and it's a community board. And I've really enjoyed working with them to build their skills. And I know that that's got a direct impact on the community they serve. So yeah, really recommend it.
And I was just heard like a few days ago, been seeing this whole storm everywhere about keep changing the chemistry, actually turning 10 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, recently. Birthday. And wasn't aware it was, because you could see the impact that changing the chemistry has had across the board when you hear about how many people have went through them and been encouraged by the organisation. But I hope SACRO and all of the new sort of roles that you have within the last few months, because it's completely rechanged your whole life, right? You're not the same person you were 6 months ago.
No, absolutely not. And I'm moving house next month, so everything will be different, but I like it that way.
Yeah, I guess if you change the hair colour, I suppose that people won't really be able to recognise you either, right?
That's what I joke with colleagues at Scottish Government, because I dyed my hair just before I started working at the government, and I never met anybody in real life. It was all through Zoom. So they've obviously said to me, oh, you should come back and visit. And I was like, nobody will recognise me if I don't have pink hair. I'll need to take a picture.
Yeah, but no, it's been fantastic speaking to you, Zahra. I mean, you're an inspiration and to me. I mean, you may not like the terminology, you might feel like I'm just living my life, but we should be aware, I'm sure we are all aware of also the barriers that face all of us as individuals, and through that adversity we should not let it hold us back, and you for one have not let that hold you back. And excited to see where you are going to go on the rest of your career, and hopefully we'll actually meet in person at some point. Yes, I just realised we've actually met in person.
Well, as you know, I grew up in Cumbernauld, so I am more than happy to come to North Lanarkshire and see you. But thank you so much for asking me. It's really a privilege.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully we'll have that coffee sometime in Kildare, probably.
Brilliant.
Yeah, speak soon.
Thank you. Bye.